Welcome to episode 7 of the Bogey Ball Society Golf Podcast. Matt, I know you're excited about this one in particular.
Yep.
I'm pretty damn excited. Yeah, we're probably never going to have a guest that we're going to say I'm not very excited about it. So I get that.
That's fair. That's fair. But this one's very near and dear to my heart. I give a lot of credit to my game changing when I switched over to a L.A.B. That it gave me confidence that I never had. It gave me more made putts than I had ever had, and allowed me to free up some time to take away some practice from putting and put onto some other things, chipping and pitching and stuff like that. So
this is a coup for the podcast too, because I mean, L.A.B golf is all the rage, right? I mean, he's that company and Sam have found success on the tour. They've developed, I mean, a pretty aggressive cult following in the amateur ranks. I mean, things are going very, very well for L.A.B right now.
The new Oz one, they did a limited release that was twice the price or 3 times. I don't know what it was. It was $1,700 or something. Sold out in minutes.
Yep.
And yeah, people are devoted, and I'm one of them. Yep.
Well, let's get into it. Let's turn it over, and folks, hope you enjoy this one. I will give you a heads up.
Yes.
We gave and encouraged Sam, be colorful, be passionate, be yourself, and he's colorful and passionate about it. So we're generally pretty clean, right, and easy to listen to. If the kids are with you, why don't you table this one till the kids aren't with you, or strap those earmuffs on them and duct tape them on, because Sam's passionate. We encourage him to be passionate and let it all out. And
I think we're better for it. So anyway, yeah, enjoy. My 4-year-old tonight at dinner turned to me and said, "Awkward." And I said, "Do you even know what that means?" And he said, "No," but he used it perfectly.
No,
and I was
Dad,
like,
but I can tell you are. Like,
that's right.
I've heard.
He's like, I just know.
And I just had an instinct that this was the right time and place to say, "Awkward."
It was perfect. Yeah. Welcome back to the Bogey Ball Society. This is episode 7, and we got ourselves a little get. I am Matt. We got joined, as always, by Hayes, Jason, Brian, and our special guest, Sam Hahn, CEO of L.A.B. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, so let's jump in. How did you become the CEO of L.A.B? Because I know you've been there 7 years. Am I right?
About 7 years, almost. I was actually just talking with Bill this morning. It might actually be 7 years to the day that Bill and I decided to try and do something, because I remember we sort of talked about it, and then I went home to Chicago in Thanksgiving 2017, and that was when I brought the idea to my brother and my dad, and we ultimately decided to pool some cash and partner with Bill. So yeah, that's how it went. Bill Presley had invented the lie angle balance technology, got the patents going and everything. And his company at the time was called Directed Force, and the big ugly branding iron putter was called the Reno. And then,
oh wow,
it had tried to get it going, but it's really hard, it turns out, to start a putter company. And they were about to close the doors just without much momentum. And so I partnered with Bill. I think it was officially rebranded as L.A.B Golf by April of 2018. And yeah, I've been at it ever since.
Am I correct? You had actually tried the Directed Force. That's what sort of brought you to the company, right?
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry that's the more fun part of the story than me talking on the phone. Yes. So I've been in the bar and music business actually for most of my adult life, and leaving me plenty of time during the day to play. And I total certified nut and big into the equipment stuff, particularly putters. And a friend here in Eugene ended up coming across the Reno putter in Australia, brought it home, showed me the putter, and asked me to give it a try. And I had a completely profound experience with it. Ordered one myself, And the part of the story I usually leave out is that what followed after my initial honeymoon was 2 weeks of the worst. Am I allowed to swear?
You absolutely are. Yeah.
No, I can't. Okay. It was the worst fucking putting in my life. Like, it was unbearable. Like, I couldn't make putts from 2 feet. I remember so specific. So I like, used to get made fun of all the time by my friends because I was switching putters all the time. And I'd always be like, classic idiot putter guy being like, no, this is the one. This is the one. And I said it one more time, but this time I said it about a, fucking random branding iron from Reno, Nevada that, was ugly. And I mean, you think they're ugly now, like then they were like it just looked like the cheesiest, cheapest product. But I was so dug in because I had gone so hard on saying this is the answer. And I remember so specifically, kind of 2 weeks deep of not being able to roll it into a swimming pool from 3 feet. I was on the 13th green at Emerald Valley all by myself. I had, and it's a par 5. It's this beautiful par 5. I can usually get it up around the green, but it's very rare that I hit it on the green. And I'd knocked it to about 2.5 feet. And I'm just so stoked. And I pull out the DF and I didn't even touch the hole. Like, didn't even come within an inch of either edge of the hole. And it was just like about to throw the thing in the river. And that was the moment that I started to learn the technology. Basically, that was the moment in which the thought occurred to me that, like, we know that the putter is staying square by itself. So if I missed it, there's got to be some other reason other than this putter that I really want to throw in the river right now, because it's self-squaring. And that was what kind of started my whole shtick around letting the putter stay square instead of keeping it square. Right. I changed my grip in that moment. I just sat there hitting that same 2.5 foot putt over and over and over again until I kind of had adjusted. And then what followed was the greatest golf of my entire life. I was about a 1 handicap at the time, and 6 weeks later, I was a plus 3.5. I had a scoring average of 72. And wow. It was it was incredible. It was super, super fun. I had great, legitimately had a chance to shoot in the 60s every time I put a peg in the ground, and it was incredible. And then the head fell off the putter, and I was totally devastated. And it actually wasn't that quick. There was a click in the putter one time. I kind of leaned on it and I heard it click. And then all of a sudden I started like twist. If I like twisted the grip really quick, it would go like I could hear it, like, just not good. And I ignored it, but it became like my fidget. I'd like start like playing with the grip and hearing the click, 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 click. And I kind of like became addicted to the tactile feeling of that click. And then one day it just fell clear off. And so I sent it back to Reno, and that's when I met Bill. And Bill he and I chatted a few times on Facebook, but he reached out to apologize personally about the putter head falling off. And that's when we became pals, and total kindred golf spirits and completely different people in every other, aspect of life. But within golf, we had something pretty special together, and it was exciting to partner with him.
So 7 years ago, clearly you believed in the product. Did you have any idea or did you believe that it would become what it has? Your success is an understatement. It's blowing up on the tour. It's blowing up among amateurs. Did you see that coming, or is this kind of beyond your wildest dreams?
Yes and no. So like in the sort of, I knew nothing about the industry. I knew nothing about golfers. I knew nothing about tour players. I knew nothing about anything. All I knew was like I had a reasonably high golf IQ. I was a big golf fan. I knew the game. But when I had my breakthrough as somebody who had spent the previous 15 years cycling through putters every week, I knew that the technology was incredible, that it was super real and that it wasn't placebo. I gotten a couple other friends onto it, and they were having similar experiences. So when I got the company, my assumption was that it was going to be about an 18-month thing. I thought that I was going to figure out how to get out on the PGA Tour, that Tiger Woods was going to come try it. He was going to have the same experience that I did, and that, Callaway was going to come along and write us a big check, and I'd be on my merry way. And so before the papers were signed, yes, I envisioned all of this. 6 months into it, I was like, what the fuck have I done? I've, uprooted my entire life, and it was, I was making $0. I didn't have to uproot my family physically, but it certainly was a massive, change in our lifestyle and in everything that we had done. And it was horrifying, it was totally horrifying. Wow. So, if you'd asked me before I signed papers, yes, this is what not that I pictured this, but I pictured it being successful and these putters taking over. 6 months into it, I couldn't have imagined what's become of this in my absolute wildest dreams. I mean, it's Looney Tunes.
That's awesome. How long after the 2.1? So the rebranded, right? So you rebranded Lab, rebranded the Directed Force 2.1. How long after that was it the Mez that came first? What's the iteration?
No, the next model was Blade 1.
That's right.
And Blade 1 was Bill had already made one of them when we got the company. Okay. And that was part of the business plan, right? Was everybody's like, can you make something a little bit more conventional looking? Now, in the meantime, I knew that we didn't want something more conventional looking, because the fact that you could see our putter from 3 fairways over was only going to serve us well. So Blade 1 would have come out in I think early 2019. And one of the big things that happened, so Bill had some machining experience, but not a ton. And we had a Bridgeport mill, which is like a single axis mill. And the design of a Bridgeport hasn't really changed much since the late 70s, really. And so to make a putter, and this is why, Cameron and Bettinardi, these guys back in the day, this is why they kind of got the accolades that they did, is that they were cutting all these putters on Bridgeport mills. There was no computer telling the machine what to do. They were physically making these cuts. And
holy cow.
And so Bill bought one of these mills, and we were trying to prototype Blade 1, and it was just taking forever. And so that was when we met Kevin Martin. So Kevin is currently our senior engineer at L.A.B, and he was up in Washington. And I don't remember, he was a friend of Bill's who introduced us to Kevin. And so he was up in Seattle, and then I ended up moving down to Reno to help us make these putters after we'd sent him, kind of the drawings, and he cut a few, what had taken Bill 6-8 months or whatever, Kevin had done in a machine shop in a day. And so we're like, oh, well, that's easier. Wow. So Kevin came to work for us, and that's a huge part of the story. Without Kevin coming along, and him, he and Bill kind of working together on these designs, there's no chance we are where we are. So yeah, Blade 1 was first. It had some problems, when we first started making them. And then Blade 1 evolved into B2, and B2 also had some big times problems from a manufacturing standpoint. Great putter, but so yeah, that was all in 2019.
So since we're talking the history of all that, I've been golfing for maybe a decade, right? And for as long as I've been into golf, putting has been about, if you have a straight back, straight through stroke, face balanced, if you've got some arc, toe hang. It's almost impossible, or it's hard to accept almost, that there's been this void of technology how did we go so long without this torque discussion that we're having now?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, and I think about it all the time. At a minimum, it blows my mind that of the sort of, what we refer to as a torque profile, using toe hang or face balance putter, of the torque profiles available, that nobody made a toe up putter. And L.A.B goes beyond toe up, and we can get into that in a bit. But just for starters, if they have a toe down putter, why didn't somebody figure out, to make one go toe up and at least cover all four quadrants bases, of where a putter can rest? Because if you think about it, there wasn't a toe up putter for a very, very long time, not until the early 90s. And around the same time was also the first couple face down putters we'd ever seen. The Dandy, Vijay Singh won at Sahali with a Dandy. And so yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing. And as you look back at the evolution of golf clubs, I mean, it's because putting was not really a huge aspect of the game when it first, came about. It was about, hitting the ball, and the way that we hit ball was with a shaft and a club head that, came out at 90 degrees. And so the putter evolved from that, is why, I think we kind of ended up in the box that we did. And, you know, the more I'm in this world of innovation, I mean, the more I realize, like, innovation's hard, man. The moments in which truly innovative products are made generally happen by accident.
Sure.
And sure, there are certain, you know, it's a combination of serendipity and somebody asking a question, you know, and in Bill's case, you know, the circumstances that led him to figuring out that putters don't balance. Because I don't know about you, but before I had an education about all this stuff, I kind of, without really thinking too much about it, assumed that my putter was staying square by itself. You know, that they didn't really feel like these things were influencing me. I really felt like when I had bad days, hey, if I just relax, pull the putter nice and smooth back and nice and smooth through, that it should just square itself up. And so Bill one day was messing around with a tricep lock. So this is before the anchor band. So this runs up your forearm and then kind of would hold on to the outside of his arm here. And he was in his trailer and he was all, you know, it was kind of a sticky night. Let's go of the putter with his hands, and it was stuck to his arm, and he saw that the putter just like flopped right open. He's like, well, that ain't right. But the putter doesn't even like stay square when I'm sitting still. That's crazy. And so then he built the first revealer to start testing what putters did. And that's really important. A lot of people don't realize that the revealer, while it is an incredibly powerful marketing tool, was not something that was designed to show what our putters does. It was the other way around. The revealer came first.
Okay.
The revealer is what led Bill to lie angle balance. And,
That's cool.
You know, you asked the question, how did this not happen sooner? I think without kind of thinking through a revealer, I don't know how you would have arrived at realizing what your putters did, you know, like, and what they were trying to do in motion. So he made the revealer, and then he started putting all of his 600 putters in there and figuring out, you know, which one of them, you know, did what, and none of them sat square. So it was a Baby Ben, which was when Bettinardi was with the Hogan company.
Okay.
And it was a putter that Urich used to win the 2003 Open, sort of an anvil-shaped single plane putter. So perfect for testing what Bill wanted to, which was to drill holes all over it and figure out where you could stick a shaft and have the putter at least stay square at address. So once he did that, then he met an engineer, actually a student of his who was an engineer, and they just started screwing around and figured out how to keep it square in motion. That's where lie angle balance was born.
That's so cool. Like I wouldn't say I was a doubter, but I was intellectually curious over, you know, the impact. I've seen you answer it 1,000 times of like, well, if my hands are on the putter, what difference does it make? Like,
try like 20,000 times I've answered that question.
Yeah. I think I read 3 different posts earlier this week, but I was like, there's got to be something to it. And I picked up a Mes Max and started rolling that, and I was like, okay, I can feel the difference. And where it really stuck with me was like the 5 to 10 foot putt range. I remember I had a mid blade before, and I'd sit there and I'd be like, I know I just have to be smooth and it's going to come back square. And I would like lead putts to the right, lead putts to the right, lead putts to the right. And I could feel it happening in my swing. And I wasn't even thinking that it was the torque.
Right.
As soon as I got that Mes Max and I'm standing over those 6-7 foot putts, I'm like, this is automatic. All I have to do is rock my shoulders and it goes and it's gone. And it's been eye-opening to me. Since then, I've tried Link 1 and I have a DF3 in the bag now. And, you know, the first run out with the DF3, I think I made 4 birdie putts, and it was like, I wanted to like the Mes Max more, but the DF3 is just beating it out. And I mean, like you said, you've answered that question like 20,000 times, and there's kind of really no other way to explain it. But how can you beat that challenge of education for people?
It's constant. You know, that's something I've had to accept, that it never ends. Education never ends. And until, you know, we've reached 25 million golfers worldwide, you know, and actually had a chance to give them the shtick here, I just need to never get tired of answering the question. And I never do, because, like, you know, I mean, like, yeah, fuck the trolls, and they'll people that just argue for arguing's sake. But for the most part, when people, you know, make that comment or ask the question, they're happy to hear the answer, and generally, a conversation ensues. And every time a conversation ensues, generally, I learn something too. You know, I learn people's perspectives and what kind of blocks people have, keeping them from sort of seeing the physical realities of what we do or experiencing it, with a putter. And, it was definitely early on that I found myself really overwhelmed with the reality that our task was to change people's minds. And I didn't know that going in. And then I realized it. And changing somebody's mind is, just one of the most difficult things in the world to do, particularly golfers. So it's, I needed to learn not to get mad about it, and not to overreact to people being kind of set in their ways, particularly given that most of the time I'm chatting with folks, these are people who golf is, 90th on their list of priorities in their life. They're scrolling through their phone. They see some stupid ad. They make some stupid comment. They're a couple beers deep. And these are not like people that are prepared to like have a conversation, And so I needed to get used to all that. It took a minute. But once I did, I think that our biggest asset as a company is the fact that we aren't afraid to have those conversations and we aren't afraid to educate folks. And, but yeah, that one in particular was a tough one to get around. And Bill had some really good language that helped. And in his original analogy about it to this day is still the best. And I have two different ways that I kind of explain well, if I have my hands on the putter, why does, torque matter? The best analogy is steering alignment. And, we have within our hands and arms, obviously the strength to control a car and keep it going straight, even if it, if you let go of the wheel and it starts pulling to the left, your hands can control that and keep that from happening. But it's sure a shitload easier to drive the car when it isn't pulling to the left. And as soon as you notice that it's pulling to the left, then you can't get it out of your fucking head, like it just makes you crazy. And it's the same thing with putters. Like once you actually see with your own eyes what these putters are doing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like if you look at the revealer and look at all the stuff, like I had all these like, remember at the end of Usual Suspects when the 78 moments of, that you didn't realize were happening all like flash before your eyes, like that happened and still happens to me where like, I remember certain putts that like, I was just absolutely certain I put a good stroke on it only to have the putter go one way or another. And, and just sorting through all those experiences and communicating them is kind of why we are where we are.
Well, I'm glad to hear you've learned not to be angry because I owe you a bit of an apology.
Were you one of my fucking trolls?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm not that guy. But
is currently one of your trolls.
He could be. Yeah.
What's a step larger than a troll? Was it? Anyway.
Ogre.
There you go.
Right. Ogre. Maybe ogre. But you described early before you discovered them as like, dating a different putter every 2 weeks. And this is the one. That's me right now. And I have to confess, I've tried a 2.1 and I tried a Mez Max. But in both cases, they were basically from a buddy, and they were not fit for me at all. And right now I'm currently dating an even roll, and the lie angles it's about 37 degrees of toe hang, and it's 74 degrees lie angle. Right, I use a pretty upright putter, so I'm sure I did not give your putters a fair shake because the lie angle is way off. And I'd like to. Why is the lie angle balance? Like, why is fitting so important for it to work properly?
Yeah.
So the whole advantage of using our technology is freedom, so like in every other sort of stroke sport that we engage in, darts, pool, shooting free throws, bowling, these things that require kind of a smooth motion, you're not fighting the instrument. And, in putting, you fight the instrument, except with lie angle balance. You have to fight it in the sense that you need to keep it on plane. But you're not fighting the face anymore when you have a lie angle balance putter. And so to fully engage in that freedom, you need to be comfortable. And, if you're using other people's putters that are typically going to be around 69 or 70 degrees and you're up at 74, that's a significant difference. So unless you made, a significant change to your grip, namely, in your left, are you right-handed player?
Right-handed, yeah.
So presumably,
He's gonna cut me.
the grip, presumably the grip is in your lifeline like this, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, in order for you to feel comfortable with something that, is in Matt's spec over there, you'd have to be gripping it like this, a little bit more in the fingers, like you do your 7-iron, which for you, for whatever reason, isn't comfortable. So, right off the bat, before you even pull a lab putter back, you're uncomfortable, and discomfort usually leads to tension. Tension usually leads to lab putters feeling like shit.
To use your previous analogy, then I was driving the car out of alignment and trying to make it work.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, not in motion, but yes, in a static position. You're before you even draw it back, it's uncomfortable. And I actually just wrote a paper about this morning. I put it up on WRX, and I want to write a whole separate paper around hangovers and honeymoons, but
I will be reading that.
Was your experience neutral or horrible with the lab? And don't sugarcoat it.
No, I expect it to be over the moon like everyone else's. Like Matt and Brian will never go back to anything besides a lab. And when it wasn't a miracle for me after the first 5 putts, I was kind of disappointed. In retrospect, I wasn't fit for it, so it wasn't going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you weren't fit for it, and 5 putts ain't a fair shake. But I mean,
you're free to call me a dumbass. I mean,
we all do.
Everyone else does.
You've made that implicitly clear. I don't need to say it out loud.
I had that coming.
I will also say that even as somebody who is a convert, it took me a full 2 weeks to get accustomed to the 2.1. Ball setup was different. Obviously, the look of it was so different from what I had been playing, and it just took believing in I'm going to give this every chance I can to see if it actually helps, because I felt so lost when I was putting. I just never knew if it was me that was pushing the ball.
You experimented with the thumbless drill too, right? To really kind of get comfortable with it
right away. Yeah, that was one of the first. That was one of the first videos I saw. Was you take your thumbs off and just let the putter do its thing, and that helped almost immediately. It's
a big deal. The getting the thing to flow, and sort of getting used to letting it stay square versus keeping it square is a process. For some people, they already kind of putt like that. Other people have significant, what we call the torque hangover. And what's so cool now is that there's enough momentum and enough people have a friend who've, had success with it, that if somebody gets it and they don't have success right away, there's resources, there's videos, there's, forums, there's, all this kind of stuff where people can talk through their experiences, because it is different. There's no question but that it absolutely is different. Very recently, I was speaking with a fairly well-renowned putting coach in the UK, who's always fucking with us online. Like every time there's a, some kind of post about it or whatever, he just chimes in with, seriously nerdy shit. And, but his basic thesis being, you need torque to tell you where the putter is. And that, you lose feel if you don't, have some torque in the putter head. And we'd get in these pissing contests online for like 2 years, pretty much. He and I have been, going back and forth on different threads. And then finally I was like, bro, like we got to have a Zoom. We got to talk. And, so we did. And it was a great conversation. He's a great guy. And the reason it was so frustrating, and the reason I didn't dismiss him is that I watch all of his other shit and I love his instruction. He's an awesome coach. And he personally has one of the most beautiful putting strokes I've ever seen. And it was a eureka moment for him. And he's not like fully bought in, but he's seemingly less of a hater anyway. When I said, it's not that you lose feel, it's just that it's a different feel. And so for a lot of people, when they grab the putter and they start swinging it back and forth, the putter feels super light and vague and empty and weird and in kind of this weird zero gravity kind of mode. You just kind of don't know. What's uncomfortable at first for people to realize is that that's good. That's the feeling you're chasing. When you feel that there is no resistance, when you feel it being empty and glidey and, whatever, that's what you're after. And I kind of refer to some of the other stroke sports. It's like, you would never want to feel egregious torque when throwing a dart from the dart itself. Sure. You're looking for it to feel empty and free, and you react to a target. I appreciate that we are used to using torque, to tell us where the putter head is. At the amateur level, not very well. And at the professional level, extremely well. That's kind of the difference in those two, kind of levels of putting. So that's why it took so long at the professional level, is that those guys, have reached extraordinary heights in their career with very specific feelings throughout a putting stroke that they're just awesome at, And so when you tell them like, no, this is going to feel different and you might have to change your stroke a little bit, they don't want to hear that shit. But that is kind of the mode. The good news is the changes, like, they're really not that hard, because once you get it, it's actually a more natural motion than putting as it is with conventional putters, because of this, unwieldy instrument in your way.
Yeah, I was going to say that I didn't really have a hangover from like a putting on the greens. The biggest thing was getting used to just the look and having the onset shaft. And now that I've rolled, it took me probably, I had to roll like 50, 100 putts to get used to that look. And now I prefer that look. I like seeing the whole face of the putter. So going back and rolling my other putters, it kind of feels a little weird to have something in the way there. But I've always been like a dead hands kind of putter. So getting used to kind of letting the putter do its thing was really an easy transition for me.
Sam, the minute you need to go get more wine, you just say, and we'll pause.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think I'm actually out of wine.
I'm trying to up my hosting skills, and my brother-in-law is an excellent host, and he never lets anyone's glass get half empty. So,
well, I have the AirPods, so I can keep talking to check if I have it.
Oh, perfect.
This happens every podcast. Is he going to come back?
Hayes stole a little bit of my thunder, because I was going to ask about the importance of fitting as well. Because I currently I do not play a L.A.B. I have a Scotty Cameron Newport 2. Which is I've played for about a year and a half. I'm the local intrigue guy, and the Oz or OZ or however it's pronounced, we can't decide yet. I am very, what we call in our group, nobled, which is very, very interesting in this new putter.
It's going to be awesome. It's Oz, by the way.
It is. Okay.
One thing you said earlier really kind of struck me is when you said Bill was almost at the point where like things were going to stop and these putters weren't even going to potentially come to market. And now, again, tour presence is growing. Obviously, Adam Scott's been playing L.A.B. for a long time, and he's one of the world-class tinkerers when it comes to tour golfers. What has it taken to get other guys on board, or even to just roll the putt? Because like I said, these guys, I mean, they play for millions of dollars. They're masters of their craft. Obviously, they've got to be pretty set in their ways, or an amateur, probably more likely to, well, I suck at putting, so I'm going to do anything I can to improve.
Yeah.
What have you guys seen to kind of get a little bit more rolling with tour pros? Like, recently Ricky Fowler's put one into play.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a whole different game than it was. Just because we won a couple of times, and it's it's a valid, reasonable option. So more often now, guys are coming to us. Ricky's awesome and has a very good relationship with one of our reps out on tour. He's been out there for years and years, and so we gave it a try when he had some time and liked it. But prior, what was tricky was that like the guys that would come over to the bag are generally the guys that were struggling, and so and Adam was certainly an early adopter and definitely put us on the map. He got one in 2019 after playing with Kelly Slater at the Pebble AT&T Pro-Am, and Kelly's been using it. Kelly out-putted Adam and Patrick Cantlay, who was in that group at the time, and I was like, what the hell is that thing? So Adam got one the next week at Riviera, and then put it in play in Honda that next week, and that's 2019. And this was a conventional size putter. This was not a broom. This was a regular one, and he actually led the Masters through 2 rounds using the conventional DF. And that helped. That helped make it so that we weren't some kind of, I don't even know, gimmick, whatever. I mean, it definitely validated the tech a little bit. But interestingly, the biggest breakthrough that we had was that same year towards the end of the year, and it was Vaughn Taylor. I don't know, some of you guys might be too young to even know who that is, but Vaughn was he was a Ryder Cupper, I think probably 04, 06, something like that. Really, really strong player. Very well-respected player on tour and a very well-respected putter. And he'd been using a Seymour forever, for his whole career, and was a, ball striking went in and out, driving went in and out, but he was always perennially one of the, top 50 putters on tour. So late one night on a Tuesday night in Reno at the Barracuda, sun's going down. It's just me and Vaughn. All the other reps have gone home. All the other players have gone home. He's on the other side of the green, and I see him working with a Seymour, and he's just like just cannot make it at all. Just cannot make a putt. And he's clearly frustrated as shit. And I walked over, and this is before I realized how totally inappropriate it was for me to like as aggressively approach players as I used to. My go-to line was, "Hey, you want to see my magic trick?" And I bring over the revealer, and I'd grab their putter, stick it in there, and then grab mine. And Vaughn is like the kindest man, and you could tell that he wasn't particularly thrilled with the fact that I was, bugging him in his process. But looked up and gave me the time and rolled a couple putts. And all of a sudden he starts filling it up, like just, and hadn't been able to in forever. He'd really been struggling for months. And he was about to lose his card. He needed a top 2 finish in Reno to keep his card, and he did. He put the L.A.B in the original one in the bag that week, and ended up finishing second. But that week he was staying with Bill Haas, I think Kisner, and a couple other guys. And so that Wednesday,
oh wow,
this is not a particularly relevant story, but that Wednesday, it was just kind of one of my favorites. But Bill Haas, Kiz, God, I wish I could remember who else it was. It was like 3 or 4 other guys just came marching right over to the bag Wednesday morning, and they're like, "Vaughn tells us we got to take a look at this thing. What's the deal?" And
wow.
and it was like one of my greatest. It was like there's a couple of great moments that happened here. So. I'm like, yeah, so it's a really cool putter. Here's the revealer. Here's this thing. And, the putter stays square by itself. And one of the other really, awesome added benefits is that because, the entire head is moving at the same speed, at the same time, in the same direction, you have serious forgiveness on off-center strikes. And so I'm putting with a revealer at the time that I'm showing them this. And I'm like, without being able to control the head, this is what happens when I hit it off the center. And I was hitting like a 30-footer, I make it. I'm like, and this is what happens when you hit it off the toe, I make it. This is what happens when you hit it off the heel. I make it. And these guys are just like fucking absolutely blown away. And I think all 3 of them, whatever, a couple other guys, it was a big week for us. We ended up having 4, 5, 6 putters in play that week. And, but the other great part of that moment was Kevin Kisner. And Kevin's like, everybody else is watching me do the thing, and they're looking at the putter and they're looking at me putt and they're fiddling around with the putters. And Kevin's just fucking staring at me. Like just absolutely just cutting me up with his eyes, just staring at my face, like seemingly not listening to a single word I say. And then everybody grabs putters and they all walk away. And he's just kind of sitting there. And he's like, "You're a little different, huh?"
Fantastic.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And so I told that, I've told that story a few times, and somewhat recently, Brandon Harding, who runs our tour department, was in, it was actually the beginning of the year, he was in Hawaii. And I guess he asked, and Kevin was, talking to him on the bag and everything. He asked Kevin, he's like, "So my boss always tells this story about, you calling him out for being a little different." And apparently Kevin's response was, "I wasn't wrong, was I?"
So good.
Anyway, so yeah, so Vaughn really, really made it so that people were willing to take a look, and willing to consider that it had some viability, and then just lucky breaks piece by piece. I mean, what's interesting is that way more often, maybe not so much anymore, but certainly a few years ago, the calls we get from players were when they were at home playing in their clubs, and a friend of theirs that they play with has one or something like that. It was pretty rare that we were actually getting, really good luck and bites actually out on the bag. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed. What we did notice was that almost 100% of the time, anybody who grabs the putter on a Monday or Tuesday and puts it in play that week, it's out of the bag the following week. Sometimes it doesn't even make it till Friday, which was the case for Kevin Kisner earlier this year. But the people who grab it and spend a few weeks with it almost never go back.
Wow.
So like if they grab them when they're at home and they have the opportunity to do what, what you guys have heard and seen in your forums that a lot of people have to do, which is to adjust.
Can you just talk us through the lineup? Is there it's not game improvement versus tour, right? That isn't necessarily what you guys do, but is there is there a difference between, say, the 2.1, which is still the flagship as far as most forgiving, right? I think I'm correct there. 2.1,
Correct,
maybe
yes.
the DF3, Mez Max, Mez, like, do you rank them at all? Do you encourage somebody?
Not really. I mean, they're. I think that one of the things I feel in the industry that has gotten completely overblown is like, that's overstated. It's not completely overblown. Forgiveness matters. But like within a certain range, when you start getting a fairly reasonable sized footprint on a putter, unless you're hitting it like 2 inches off center, you're not going to have too much disparity on off center strikes. And then with our technology, because like I said, the force of every part of the putter is moving in the same direction at the same speed at the same time. The technology by itself actually does increase forgiveness. It does increase, getting some love on some of those off center hits. MOI, as it's measured now, is a fairly flawed way of looking at forgiveness, in the sense that, sure, if you had a 600 gram chunk of stainless on the end of a stick, it's going to be very forgiving across the face. But measuring ball speed on off center strikes is kind of really where you see the realities of forgiveness, and you don't necessarily see the highest MOI putters actually performing with consistent ball speeds across the face. But yes, so yeah, we have found that the 2.1, I mean, really, you can hit it anywhere on the face, and it just doesn't matter. Next is the DF3, which is pretty close, and then it and the Mez Max are extremely comparable. Interestingly, Link 1 is actually more forgiving than Mez 1.
Wow.
Yeah. It's negligible. I mean, it's really, 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 really close. But yeah, it actually is ever so slightly less forgiving than Link 1. But, all of them relative to a comparable putter size-wise are going to be more forgiving than similarly sized putters in different configurations.
So where will the Oz fall on the spectrum there?
Kind of right between Mez Max and DF3.
Okay. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if a girl like me is going to get off this podcast and get online and find my lab now that I've listened to the sales pitch, I just want to know what I should be looking at. So thank you.
Oh, I think the Oz is awesome. I think people are going to absolutely love it. And we've hit a, one of the beauties of the amount of social media engagement that we do is like real-time feedback. I mean, true, non-surveyed, non-biased, real-time feedback. And among the complaints that people make about our putters, besides the fact that they look weird, is shaft lean, and is one thing. Onset and shaft lean in the press grip, visually people kind of struggle with. So Oz is going to have an option. You don't have to, but it's going to have an option for zero lean and a straight grip.
Oh, wow.
Another complaint that we get is the sound. Some people just don't like aluminum, and it's not even the aluminum, but actually the physical makeup of some of our putters is what gives it some of that tink sound. And completely mitigated with Oz. And then
is that because of the insert?
And then ball speed. So Oz has an option for an insert. You don't have to have one. We do have a one-piece aluminum version that will be available. That's what the stock is going to be, and it still too is very quiet. There's no tink involved in it, and it's quite soft. But the other issue that we have with, that people complain about is ball speed on a lot of our putters. And the stainless insert will absolutely help with that. So plus that, in addition to the fact that the CG is so much closer to the face than any putter we've made besides Link, is going to make it, a much hotter putter than we've had in the past.
Yeah, that was going to be my question about the insert, and if there was a performance aspect to it, or if it was more of a sound and feel.
Both, yeah. I mean, it'll increase ball speed, but sound and feel is a performance benefit. If you, there's certain putters that I've had, love the look of, love the way they roll, love the way they perform. But if you don't get that tactile kind of response that you're looking for, it generally don't last very long.
And I imagine that's something you have to design in, like you did with the Oz versus like you wouldn't be able to easily like modify the DF3 to be able to take a face insert, right?
We're going to try. We would love to, I mean, our whole mission is kind of to just never say no. If a customer asks for something, if something can be done, we'd love to make every option available. And yeah, people bitch about how expensive our putters are, but when you factor in the fact that they are all effectively custom made to order, they're actually not that expensive. Like if you go and ask a Bettinardi to, add one more degree of loft to their putter, you're now going to spend $4,000 fucking dollars on that putter. Or twist the neck a different way, just shit like that. And so we want to be able to offer up any customization that anybody could ever dream of. Within the range of what we currently offer. So yeah, and the aluminum face is definitely something that makes a lot of noise online with people frustrated about it. So yeah, the hope would be that we can start to offer inserts. Where inserts get tricky for us is that it changes the CG. So what you'll see on Oz is that the all aluminum piece versus the one that's got the insert, you'll see a different configuration on the bottom with the screws and where they are and where they're located, and not that you'd be able to see it by looking at it, but what they weigh. And so that gets a little tricky. It would be great if we could, just kind of not have to have a whole separate chassis in order to accommodate a steel face versus an aluminum face, but for now, until we figure that out, that's unfortunately what we got to do.
And remember, don't touch the screws, kids.
Don't
leave them alone.
Touch the screws.
Touch. That's right.
And that's pretty cool to hear. That there will be a different shaft lean and grip offering on the Oz. As someone who's never been fit for a putter before, and I know that you guys do the online fitting, and it's been super successful for pretty much everyone that's done it. Will you be able to make recommendations as far as what may work best for how the shaft should be aligned, what grip should work best for the player?
We just had a big meeting about this last week. So we're going to start probably expanding the questionnaire that goes along with the remote fitting. This isn't law, but if you were going to make a generalization, and I really hate doing that, I hate categorizing. If you were going to make a generalization, an onset head with no lean and no press grip is probably going to serve somebody that tends to over-rotate the face a bit, somebody that tends to shut the face through impact. But no, the answer is no. Like there isn't really any, benefit until you get in there and try it. Because if you try to counteract somebody's existing tendencies with a putter, you're going to see those tendencies change in the moment, but nobody checks back with what's happening 2 weeks later once you get used to it. So, you can change, you can mitigate somebody's tendencies with a different, torque profile or a different shape or a different lean or a different whatever in a moment. But then, everybody's experience changes the more one uses the instrument, the more their body becomes accustomed to it. So no, the answer is no. I don't have an option. I think the thing that I personally don't do great with onset and straight grips. Like I need the lean. I like to kind of feel the head behind my hands. I like offset, not onset. And so with the Oz One, it'll have 2 degrees of lean and a 2 degree grip, which actually gets the grip quite a bit out in front of the face, like it would be on a Newport or virtually any other, kind of offset putter. So I tend to prefer that, but the straight, no lean, straight grip option is going to be great for people that are very particular about their grips. The actual physical grip itself, I think is going to be really great for some people. B, I think it'll be great for people that like to tinker with grips because, with shaft lean and then the offset grip, when you start fucking around with different grips and stuff like that, you actually are going to alter the balance a little bit. Whereas with the straight grip, when it's completely on axis and we're balancing around that axis, it doesn't matter what grip you put on it. You're not going to throw the balance. So people can kind of change grips at will and without screwing anything up. And I think that'll be pretty appealing. But we'll see. We're really interested to see people's experiences. We know what we've seen internally. I don't know. I guess I would say it's probably about 50-50 as far as the guys in the factory and what they're using, whether they're going straight or pressed. But again, just thank God for social media. We're going to put them out there and people are going to tell us about their experiences and we're going to learn and we're going to be able to make a better product.
Does the loft change at all with the loft of the face because of the lean or the non-lean? In other words, are you making two different?
Yeah, if you were to put the putters like in a Mitchell to measure loft and lie, yes, they'll read differently. The reason we don't ever measure that way at L.A.B is because it's stupid. It's frankly idiotic that anybody measures,
how they're delivering the putter, I guess, is all that really matters, right?
Well, sure. But the way that loft is measured currently is the shaft at 90 degrees from the ground to the face and what the face is doing.
Okay.
It's asinine. So for us, with shaft lean, when we have built-in shaft lean, right, our putters are going to read as though they have significantly more loft than they actually have in a static
16
position.
degrees of loft, right? It's like,
yeah, right. So for us, we measure from the sole to the face, which is the proper way to actually measure loft. So from the sole to the face, no, it's not going to change. What will change is that if this is your putter and this is your shaft, you're either dead vertical here, so your hands are going to be, slightly behind the face. And then if you get a press grip, it's now going to be out in front of the face. So the amount of offset is what's going to change. It's not going to change the effective loft because in both cases, your hands are going to be in a vertical position. It's just with a press grip, vertical position in front of the face, straight grip, vertical position behind the face.
Got it. Great.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I was just going to throw in quick. I'm not a presser of the putter. So like I don't have a built-in press before I make a stroke. So just hearing that, you're saying to Scotty, like with the Newport 2, hands are a little bit ahead of the putter already. That's one less piece I have to try to think about when I'm going to the Oz, which is a near foregone conclusion in 2025 because I've just got to get on board. So that was good to hear because I'm, not knowing anything about the press grips, not knowing anything about, the preset shafts. It's like, it can be a little intimidating.
Oh, it's a lot.
If you've never done anything before and it's like, well, is this, I'm a decent putter. So it's like, is this going to just completely screw the pooch when I'm on the green, or is this going to make me better like everyone else is improving? So that's kind of good to hear.
What I'm curious to see with Oz, with the stainless face, CG being so close to the face, the fact that it'll effectively have legitimate offset if you use a press grip, I think it's almost like the other putters we have sort of force you to like get on board with how you're supposed to use a L.A.B.
Mm-hmm.
The only putter we have that isn't that way is Link. I think that's why you see Link be a little bit more popular out on tour, is because you can kind of make your same stroke that you've always make without it feeling crazy weird. And I'm wondering if Oz is going to be much the same. I'm wondering if it'll be that same thing where there isn't going to be quite as big a learn curve, which isn't necessarily a good thing. You want the learn curve because you want to be sort of forced into letting the putter, do its thing on its own. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I felt a big difference between the DF3 and the Mes Max. The DF3 kind of like you said, it's almost like putting on rails. Like it forces you to let the putter do the thing. So that will be interesting. But I know the Oz looks fantastic, so I'll probably end up having one too.
We don't have a way to measure that sort of rails feeling, but for what it's worth, Oz feels more railsy to me than Mes does for sure. Either of the Mes.
It sounds like I got a shot for a DF3. I need all the help I can get. So.
Then you want to go to the 2.1?
Aesthetically, I don't know if I could swallow that one, but we'll see.
There's a thread going right now on Lab Rat's Facebook page, and
yeah, you got to join that group though. I don't know if I would get in.
You do. You have to answer questions, and not until you switch, bruh.
You got to get the uniform.
Oh, attaboy. Attaboy, Brian.
Do you want me to leave, Sam? You can continue I can sign off.
Yeah.
No, you stay here and feel shame.
It's absolutely. We're all looking at you, Hayes.
But there's a thread going where they asked us if what putters me and Bill still use, and like for my money right now, if I was going to go play a U.S. Open tomorrow, I'm probably playing the 2.1. And all of the OG 2.1 people kind of jumped in. They're like, yeah, they all buy like, if you get used to the visual of a 2.1, it's very difficult to get super excited about anything else. And like everybody always buys the new ones, but a few weeks later, they usually end up back in the 2.1. Not always.
But you have a special 2.1, right? You have a special color 2.1, don't you?
I've had a couple that get called. No, so the one that was in the Beat the Boss was just Ross. Well, yeah, the yellow one was Mean Mr. Mustard. I got rid of Mean Mr. Mustard because it had an L.A. shaft in it, and fuck those guys. But but yes, I had a yellow one for a long time. That was in that Bust to Jack video, and that was the one that our CFO decided she had no business being in the product meeting that day, but she happened to walk in and we were choosing like from 4 different yellows. And she was like, we are absolutely not selling that. I'm sorry. And
there you go.
Gave her the opportunity to veto something just because it was novel. But so I'd Mean Mr. Mustard for a while. And then most of the putters I use are prototypes and we don't anodize them. So most of the stuff I have is just raw aluminum, which looks kind of white almost on camera. So like I just did that Beat the Boss with Liam and I was using a raw
that was great
2.1.
That was really good.
Everybody's like, you guys got a white one now? And I was like, nope.
Okay.
But I think I've got purple.
I'm going to keep my streak alive and be the jackass of the pod then. PXG, Even Roll, Odyssey. Are you feeling flattered or are you just kind of like, not excited? Like, what's your first reaction when I start listing those names off? Because imitation's the greatest form of flattery, right? But they're not exactly imitating you, or are they?
Remember that you're not angry anymore, Sam. You're woosah, just a woosah,
and I'm signing off.
Just wanted to drop that on you guys, and
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Peace. I mean, I don't know. I could talk for hours about this.
You have 3 minutes.
I wouldn't say I feel flattered. No. I will say it's validating. For sure. Yeah. It's absolutely validating. And each one of these companies, there's like a little story with each of them. PXG, I actually always thought would have been our best buyer. And
interesting.
Because they've never been able to break into the putter market. They have incredible engineers. They have a direct-to-consumer model, and their price point's already high. So I thought it would have been, a really good fit. 2 different times in the last 6 years, I had conversations with folks inside PXG, and it was almost eerie. Both of the conversations ended the same way. So I start the conversation and send them some putters, and call them back. What do you think? I think that these putters are awesome. And I think that they would be a perfect fit for PXG. They make absolute perfect sense for our lineup. The science makes sense. We can manufacture these. But if I bring this to Bob, he's going to fire me. And they literally verbatim said the exact same thing, where he's
just aesthetics.
No, because it didn't come from inside his factory. And his whole thing was, I'm going to poach you guys, and I'm paying you double to make the best shit in the world. So please don't bring me something that comes from outside this factory. You better invent it yourself. So that was an interesting thing there. And then, the PXG one was particularly upsetting because of the marketing language. So the PXG putter, the Allen, is not lie angle balance, and it is certainly not torque free. Like, it's not even on the planet of torque free. They made that ridiculous, Swedish-made penis enlarger looking revealer.
That's not my bag, baby.
Sure, shit wasn't my bag. It was just eerie, like watching Swaggart on that video, like he literally ripped off our commercials. Like, he was using the same language, the same everything, and acting as though they were the first people to ever think of it. That was the first sort of commercial, sort of assault on L.A.B. And it was very upsetting. It kept me up, a few nights. And then when I got them in the shop, and we actually started testing them and looking at them and saw how bad they were and how torquey they were, then I just started getting really, frankly, just disappointed in the industry. Like, that's just crazy to me that like a large group of people can all get together and knowingly deceive their consumers. Like, they're all okay with it. And then, so we called them out and we made a video about it. And then they made a response video that was fucking absurd, where they basically stepped on themselves 15 times and whatever. So, that was kind of our first experience with it. Then what was next?
Even roll.
Even roll was a very interesting one where so I met Garen Reif at my very, very first tour event. I was in Chicago at a Corn Ferry, or Nationwide at the time, event. And I had one of my 3 putters that I kind of always went back to pre-lab was a Reif Abaco. It was like a kind of Odyssey number 9 shape. And I was a Garen Reif fan, and he was really cool. So we met that week, and he was kind of sizing me up. Then the following week was the senior players in the same area, and he was there as well. And he went in to, get lunch or whatever. I didn't see him for a few hours. He came back out and he said, look, I've been watching you, out the window for these last few hours, and I got to tell you, you guys have the thing. You guys have the next best thing. This is going to be the thing. It's going to be huge. Wow. And, tip of the cap to Garen, who, this is 7 years ago that he, prophetically called out that this was going to change an industry. And he was actually more interested in the grip. Like, he thought the grip was just the coolest idea. And I used to chat with him. I'd text with him here and there, and I was buddies with his rep out on tour. Was kind of one of my better friends when I was out on tour. And then I kind of didn't even really notice that I stopped hearing from him. And then 6 months later, the first Zero came out. So I don't know if you guys ever saw that one, but that was the one that had sort of the backstrike shaft in it, and it had a press grip on it. And that was when we realized that there was potentially some issues with our patent that we got sorted out, and he no longer makes that press grip anymore. But it was fucked. I was pissed because, like, one of the things that Garen said to me, like when this was all happening, was like, get your IP straight. But by the way, I've been ripped off 100 times. And one of the things that you have to your advantage that I didn't have is a court of public opinion because of, social media. If I had the opportunity to actually tell people in real time how I was getting hosed by these companies, there would have been very different outcomes to a lot of these lawsuits. So I always kind of like tucked that in the back of my head when, whenever I got concerned about IP, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the first Zero came out with that backstrike shaft, didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't a particularly good putter, very high torque. It was truly no different than a face balance putter. It just happened to orient, toe up, but as soon as you started moving it, it was opening hard and then shutting in transition. So that one sucked. And it hurt, just to have somebody that I respected so much, so being so cavalier about just blatantly trying to rip us off and whatever. Then these new ones came out, this new run. And I was super pissed because the reverse hosel is a pretty fucking cool idea. And we've been working on it, and he beat us to the punch on that one. However, after I got one in hand, I was pleased that he beat us to the punch on it because it's not that good. It looks very, very strange. And
have you put one in a revealer and put that on YouTube? I haven't seen that if you have.
I haven't yet. Okay. We're deciding whether or not I ought to keep doing those, and making those call-out videos or not. Some people take it, really are quite offended at the idea of, that sort of direct competition, which is fucking weird, and I'll get to that in a second. But
the company will make their own revealer too, or some sort of knockoff of that, right?
Well, that's what PXG did with the penis enlarger. But but then we found we got one of those in hand. No, it's ridiculous. They freaking. There's so much friction in the notch where they hold the putter that it would make a face balance putter sit square if it wanted. It's an outrageous demonstration. Anyway, so the 2 even rolls, yes, we put them in the revealer. The 2 stainless ones with the reverse hosel are probably the highest torquing toe up putters we've ever seen.
No kidding.
They're really bad. The Zero, the X, the black one, that one with the hole in it, that one's quite a bit better, significantly better. It's very, very low torque, bordering even on like just being a straight CG putter. But it was okay. You'd be surprised how willing I am to accept that some of these other putters are good. Like there was parts of the Allen that I actually really liked.
I actually thought that video was pretty even-handed, all things considered, that you ended the thing saying it's a good putter. I mean, not to put words in your mouth, but I was very impressed with how you were seemingly impressed with the technology. Just it wasn't a lab. It's just not this. It's not the same. And to say it's the same is not.
It's not the same. And that was my only issue with it, is the fact that they were saying that it did something that it didn't. Right. But yeah, I'm truly able to look at these putters objectively. I'm happy to learn from them. I'm happy to see advances made and help it make our stuff better. So I was really excited to see those even rolls in a non-CEO way of just being a golf fan. And they look good. I mean, Kieran makes a great putter. There's no question. He's a very, very wise designer. He's an interesting guy because he's half truly obsessed engineer, inventor, putter designer guy, and half like, what can I sell? What has a story that I can sell, and he's a proper split between those two. He's a good man. Ultimately I got no beef with Kieran. He's out there doing his thing and doing the best he can. So then there was the Bettinardi. And here's the backstory on the Bettinardi.
Oh, I didn't even know that they came out with one.
It's not out yet. Yeah, the antidote.
I think
that's what they're calling it.
Photos floating around.
It's called the antidote.
The antidote.
It's called the antidote. So I've worked with Chris O'Connell. He's one of the guys. He's a Jim Hardy disciple of Plain Truth, 1 plane, 2 plane, that whole shtick. And Chris is a great guy, and he coaches Matt Kuchar. And and Chris has been a big proponent of L.A.B for a long time. He suggested I send Matt a couple, and this was right when he started doing the reverse arm lock, when he started leaning it against his right forearm instead of the left. So we made a couple like that, and I think they were mezzes, and he acknowledged that he got them. He's like, yeah, I'm messing around with them, and da-da-da-da. I have found out very recently, I'll say so Matt, they made Matt a blade putter that had reverse lean that looked like it was balanced from what I could tell. And then our rep confirmed that indeed it was. So I call up Bob Bettinardi and what's the word on that putter? You guys check the IP and make sure that it's all right. And he's like, yeah, I think we're good. And I was like, okay. And then I called Sam, who now runs the company, his son. And I had an idea, and I was like, look, if you guys go to market with this putter, like obviously we're going to compete, and we're going to do the thing, and we're going to put it in revealers, and we're going to tell people why it sucks, because it probably sucks because nobody knows more about this shit than we do. And but how about we collaborate? How about, L.A.B and Bettinardi get together once a year to make some cool ass putter? You guys do pretty, we do functional, and, we can each stay in our own lanes and do our own thing and collaborate on a putter. We'll charge $1,000 for it so that there's plenty of profit for each of us, and limit it to, 1,500 putters a year, and it'll be awesome. And he said, and they considered it, and they bounced the idea around quite a bit, and then ultimately declined. And my team was thrilled that they declined because they hated the idea. And I had people in my office that were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like they were just absolutely livid with me for even considering the opportunity.
We don't make pretty putters, Sam. Come on.
Like, why would we do this for them? And so then. And his whole thing was, it's going to make me look weak. That was what he said, was, that it would make us look weak if we collaborated. And I was like, does that look weaker than just doing the thing that the hot putter company is doing in a fairly watered down fashion with a simple looking blade and a god awful looking mount? Who knows? But he ultimately declined. They came out with theirs. He was hoping that Superstore and everybody was going to buy them up and by the dozen, and it ain't happening so far. So I haven't actually gotten one in hand yet. They just put them out to the public. I'm looking forward to checking it out. The way that they make them would suggest they clearly do not understand the physical realities of balancing a putter, because there's no way to move weight around. They're similarly to Odyssey and PXG. They're coming out with different lie angles. And if you have different lie angles in the same shaft location without being able to manipulate the CG, your putter ain't balanced. I mean, there's just no physical way to do it. So, you know, and that's the overarching theme with all these fucking people is that they kind of just don't care. And it's been so unbelievably disappointing to find out how little consideration is given to actually making the best possible product that they can make. They get just close enough to be able to tell the story and then start selling it. Like, they just don't actually fucking care. And it's hard to stomach, because I don't sleep a lot, and my engineers don't sleep a lot. And, you know, I mean, we truly beat ourselves up just trying to figure out how to make better product. We never let our marketing department dictate what the R&D department is doing. And that's what all of these companies do. Their sales and marketing departments are dictating what they ought to be releasing, rather than the people who actually know about fucking making putters dictating what should be released. And it's infuriating. I mean, it's really, really frustrating. And then there was the Bettinardi, and then, you know, just on Friday, the Odyssey was released. I don't have one in hand yet. I've been sent videos similarly to the Bettinardi. I've seen videos from, you know, we have a bunch of different customers, you know, wholesalers and stuff like that have sent us videos with, you know, our revealers and showing the putter and stuff. And some of them balance, some of them don't, because of the kind of same thing as Betty, where it's just like, it's a stud, you know, they're shafting over a spud, and they can't move the spud, and they don't have any ability to move the CG once it's been shafted. So, you know, grip choice, shaft concentricity, a bubble in the casting. I mean, all of these things affect balance. So you'll have some putters that look good in a revealer and some that don't. But as long as they have some that look good enough to make the video with, by the way, our fucking revealer, Odyssey, like literally used a L.A.B revealer in their video. You know, as long as they make the video with the one that looks good, it's not like people are going to check them, you know, and see where they're at. But, and they were, you know, the backstory there too was same thing. They were actually the closest. I just sold them the company in 2020. I think I probably shouldn't talk actual numbers, but for relatively speaking, peanuts. I mean, nothing. I would have sold them the company in a heartbeat, because we didn't know that COVID was going to be a golf boom, and we were scared shitless. We didn't have any momentum or anything yet. And, and so, I'd have sold them to it for peanuts in a heartbeat. I had long conversations with Chip Brewer. I had long conversations with Sean Toulon. We went back and forth a few times, and ultimately they were like, you know, we just don't really see the viability of this technology. When what they actually meant was, we've spoken with our lawyers. Turns out we're $1 billion company. You guys are shitheads from nowhere. So even if we do infringe, what are you going to do? Sue us? Good luck. And they went to work on, you know, doing it. I got to get one in hand, but again, they don't give a fuck. They just, all these companies are scrambling to get these things out because of this company called Golf Data Tech. That gives you all of the data you'd ever want to, consumer data that you'd ever want to know. And all of a sudden L.A.B was not even on the list, and then poof, 8% of the market. And so they freaked the fuck out, and they're all trying to get in the game, and none of them are doing it right. And they're all rushing to, you know, with incomplete products, and either using our marketing language or making shit up themselves and hoping that nobody notices. And on the one hand, you know, really disappointing just to find out that my industry colleagues are kind of coming from that place. On the other hand, internally, it makes us feel pretty special. It makes us feel proud of what we've done, and it makes us feel proud of our principles and our passion and our motivation for doing what we do, because it certainly isn't about letting spreadsheets drive our decision making. It's because we're legitimately obsessed with making awesome putters. I mean, we really do. Like my first stop every morning is the R&D room. I don't go to my office first. I don't go to the shop room floor first. I don't go to the meeting room first. I go to the R&D room and fuck around with putters. And I'll never stop doing that. You know, it's just that's why I'm here.
And this is a phenomenal sales pitch.
I'm just going to sneak a quick comment in because I know it's not my turn, but I think that just goes to kind of, you just essentially covered what separates L.A.B from some of these large companies is you guys are hands on every putter. These are, you know, like you said, they're mass produced putters. There's certain tolerances where if they fall in, they're going to get the line and they're going to go to production. The prices on some of those Odysseys that they're showing are pretty darn low. They're not really raising them, which with the way you're speaking, it sounds like that's a good push just to get people to buy them and not think twice about it. I mean, I think it just, you know, that's it shows how L.A.B can separate and how you guys do separate with how much you put into each
and that's
putter.
the thing. Even if they do get the technology right, I mean, nobody's going to be able to offer what we offer from a customization standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, from a quality standpoint. And, you know, it was a lot of fun this last 7 years operating in a totally non-competitive environment. Actually, that's not true. It sucked for the first 4 years. The first 4 years with everybody making fun of us and calling us snake oil and a gimmick was not fun. Then there was 2 years of a lot of fun. And then now it's, you know, now it's a whole new world with all the competition and rather than trying, you know, the task being is less about telling our story because now, I mean, that's the good side of all these companies doing this shit is that's, you know, I mean, Odyssey might have spent $4 million on that Friday unveiling. That was a few $1 million spent marketing our technology. And that's pretty helpful. But, you know, so that piece of it's good, but then, you know, we're competitors. And so we just gotta stay ahead and make sure that we keep innovating and stick to our guns, stick to our quality. And in theory, it should take care of itself.
All right. Well, I got one last one for you. Thank you. I really can't thank you enough for the amount of time that you spent with us.
This has been awesome.
For answering these questions.
It's been fantastic.
You're one of my favorite people. You know, it's funny. I still remember I was on the putting green. I had just gotten the 2.1.
I'm actually going to interrupt you. I'm sorry because I want to give you a shout out because so I don't know how many of you out there still use Marco Polo. I'm told that it's actually a fairly juvenile app. But
I was told the same thing when I got these dum-dums on it 3 days ago.
He just got it. They were like 3 days ago. I got my first Marco from this guy like 3 days ago.
I have a girlfriend and she lives a couple hours away, and like without Marco Polo, there's no chance we have a relationship. Like it's a very, very useful app. But every time I get a notification, 98% of the time it's my girlfriend, but 2% of the time it's Matt. And whenever I see that there's whenever I see that there's a Matt Swanson Marco Polo, I'm like, oh yay, dopamine! This is going to be great. He's going to tell me awesome things about putters, and it's always positive. Awesome. They're always happy, and I'm always so happy to see that you've messaged. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that makes me genuinely happy. Yeah, can you believe it?
That's the one.
But no, I remember I got to test the 2.1 for the forum, and you had arranged a call just if we had any questions. And I remember we talked for 45 minutes on the putting green, and at one point I was holding something and I was putting one-handed, and I made like 5 in a row, and I just was like, this feels like magic. Like I don't know of another company that delivers on the promise of what they say, and I feel like for me, L.A.B completely changed my golf game. I just want to thank you officially again, kind of via face-to-face, because I literally went from being scared to putt to being excited to be on the green because I felt like I could make that. And as far as the last question goes, it's probably the most important one we'll get to. And I know we only have a few minutes, so keep it brief if you can. Does the Oz scoop the ball?
We're going to need more than 15 minutes on that answer. It's a very, very complicated question. Yes, the Oz scoops the ball. It is no problem, and it scoops it better than a 2.1. The 2.1 technically does allow you to lift the ball. You got to have a little talent. Very little talent is required for.
It took me 2 years to learn, but I did learn. it was 2 years of me chasing the ball off the green as I tried to do it,
dude,
and then running
was my
after
favorite.
it, saying,
like
"Don't
the
look."
Early on demo days, like when I'd go out there to a country club and watch a bunch of like 65-year-old dudes like chasing the ball around like idiots, trying to scoop it up was like,
it is genuinely. I feel like that's
very
it.
entertaining.
Here you go. There's a new YouTube short for you. You just anyway, really, really grateful for your time and just for the company as a whole. I just think you guys are doing something genuinely incredible. So thank you for being here, and hopefully we talk soon.
Absolutely, my pleasure, guys. I'm happy to do it anytime. This is a good crew. I do a lot of podcasts, but you guys are good dudes and doing it for the right reasons. I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Hahn just said we're the best podcast ever. Just remember
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
So like and subscribe.
Subscribe and don't listen to anyone else but us.
Right.
That's right. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll talk soon, I guess. Right. I'll send you a Marco Polo, and I'll just make sure that you know it's not your girlfriend.
Right.
Awkward.
Well, that was Sam Hahn. What do you think?
I mean, the guy delivers. Just I don't know. I think I thought he might be gentle or more politic, and I love that he just spoke his mind. And he really didn't hold back. I don't know. I think there is something to be said about somebody who believes in their product so wholeheartedly that they can talk about the things that are true from their POV, but then also the things that are not true from their POV as well. And I don't know. I'm such a huge fan of him. I think in general, if you're not a fan of him coming into the podcast, I think
how could you not be?
I don't know how you could leave the podcast not being a fan. Yeah. Exactly.
That kind of candor is refreshing and probably not all that common in the industry, right? I got to be honest. I was a little nervous, like, oh crap, I had a nerve and I should not have asked some of the questions that we asked. But I think he kind of had a cathartic quality to it, right? I think he enjoyed kind of getting it all out there from his vantage point. So
I think so. I think when you are that passionate, you love your product that much, you believe in your product that much, that given the opportunity to talk about it in a way that is unfiltered and doesn't have to be kept within a press release, must be really freeing. So I'm super grateful for him coming on, for the kind words he had for us, for the time that he gave to hang out with four guys that, he doesn't really know. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next week.